Hi guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today we are going to be doing the fifth episode analysis for Life is Strange Double Exposure. Decoherence. As always, we start off with the major choices, then we talk about the minor choices, and then we get into any other areas. So Jack, first major choice, did you accept or reject Safi?
I refused. Probably a topic for another video, but I just really disagree with this choice. And I'd be very interested if there's anyone out there that accepted to explain why they accepted, because for me it just feels like it would be a betrayal of Max's character in order to do so. Like, she's clearly, like Safi I'm on about, has entered like this villainous arc towards the end. You know, she's got a bit power crazy, she's got these superpowers, she's feeling a bit vengeful because of, you know, what's happened to her with her mum and, you know, the whole Maya thing. And she's clearly going to be going down a road of destruction and, you know, something that's not very good for Max. So, yeah, I was straight up a very easy choice, mate. I chose to refuse. What about yourself?
Well, I accepted. You said if you wanted to find someone out there who did accept. Well,
right.
here you go, mate. I'm not going to lie. Just to clarify, the final choice, like the question, is worded slightly poorly. It just says, do you accept or reject Safi? Now I'm a little confused and it's a bit murky in my mind what the choice actually relates to, because I remember the choice actually being super weak. Like, it just kind of like everything, the ordeal kind of happens and then it just kind of presented to you like Safi sort of says like, oh yeah, I'm going to ride off into the sunset, find like-minded people like myself. If I come back, will you join me or will you was it something like that? Am I remembering that wrong?
It's basically like, would you go off with her and, you know, in her eyes rewrite the wrongs that sort of have happened, you know, in life and whatnot, and basically really exploit their powers.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I've completely so knowing that I would refuse. So, if your question was like, if someone out there, you know, did accept it, I want to know why. Misunderstanding. That would be one good reason. Honestly, I kind of thought, admittedly, doing it on the stream, I was talking to people, and I think I didn't get the whole question. So for me, it was a bit of a throwaway. I think I just looked at the whole thing and I was a bit like, oh, what? Yeah, sure, accept. Why not? I don't want to burn bridges with you. Okay, cool. So I probably didn't understand the question that much, but yeah, like, and I'm sure we'll get into more about Safi this episode, about the whole villainous arc. But usually I present to you like 4 to 5 major choices, but that is it, mate. That is all we get in this episode for major choices. So talk about quite a lackluster 5th episode. Everything else is a minor choice. Before I get onto them, are you quite underwhelmed with that, mate? That we only get one big choice?
Oh yeah, 100%. And just in case those that haven't followed this series, but you know, just to give you a heads up, at least on my end, it's not going to be a glowing review this episode. As a quick sort of like thing to talk about the whole game, it was started off promising, it was going up, and it just fell off sharply. The end, this main choice is part of it. But even like the rest of the episode, like the way it sort of then started to drag its feet, which I'm sure we'll get into. But as far as the choice goes, yeah, like, you know, we've seen this. It seems to be a pattern of Deck 9, and I sort of wonder whether they personally felt they wrote themselves into a corner, but they had to do something different that separated it from Life is Strange 1. But yeah, I wasn't a fan at all, mate.
Yeah, no, I quite agree, because I know there are a lot of parallels to the first game, and I'll get into them later, but I still feel like that 5th episode, although it's pretty, like, for me, one, maybe the weakest in the first season, I still feel it offered way more than this did. So yeah, no, bit of a letdown for sure in my eyes, and I feel a lot of people share that sentiment as well, lad. So we'll get into the minor choices. In the nightmare sequence, we go back into the bathroom. Did you critique the graffiti?
Yes, I did. Do you remember what the graffiti was, though?
It was some slander towards Victoria Chase. I think it's a Victoria Chase is something. So yeah, but yeah, I did as well, mate. Did you find and help Loretta?
Yes, I did.
I did, and it only says me and 37% did, and I'm wondering if like she was quite difficult to find for some people, because I kind of just like found her so naturally. She was just in the room, and I'm like, who the hell isn't saving her or helping her? But regardless, though, we'll move on. Did you reflect at the bowling alley? And you know what? While we're doing these pointless scenes, did you reflect post-storm as well, mate?
I did in the bowling alley. Did I reflect post-storm? Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah.
You know what? Before we move on, why are these even a thing? Like, why are these? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like it's that. Do you know what I mean? Some of the minor choices, I'm talking like, helping the timid guy with the bathroom. Do you know what I mean? That's all right, even though it's not major on the plot or anything. But like Max reflecting at a location, really, it just feels like it just pads. It's just something to add onto like the final choices at the end.
Yeah, because the other games do it as well, but it's not in the final choice sequence, so it almost does just feel like this game has less, so they throw that in there just to kind of fill out the book at the end. So yeah, I'm not a fan of it either. Did you look at the motel books in the nightmare sequence?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, how about the lockpicks?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, same for me with both. I think that is the end of the nightmare sequence. It's more just about wrapping up with the goodbyes. What did you say to Loretta?
I was in the majority, so it says Loretta had a change of heart in how she reports stories. So presumably this is that to do with her podcast, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, I got the same as well, mate. How did Reggie feel about you?
Reggie and Vin have reconciled, so I was in the majority.
I was in the minority because obviously on the stream they voted to kiss Vin, so he was hurt by my actions, me and 19%. Sorry, mate. Abraxas election, I was in the minority, 26% with Vin dropping out the race. How about yourself?
No, for me it says Vin plans to run again. Interesting this one though, because the only two contenders was Vin and Diamond, right? Now I'm jumping up way forward, but like the implication is that Diamond has a power and is presumably going to be in the next game. So it's sort of like, does it really matter? Is Vin always going to be ahead of the Abraxas Society anyway? Because Diamond is presumably going to bugger off and join Safi and whatnot.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know, I just didn't really care about that whole Abraxas strand. I'm not walking out of Life is Strange Double Exposure worried about the state of that certain society. There just seemed to be like a bunch of dickheads graffitiing walls and like throwing puzzle boxes everywhere. So I was just there like, I just really don't care. And I don't know if that's like a me problem or the game's problem. But I just literally looked at this choice like, yeah, sure, whatever. So it talks about Gwen and Yaz, so I guess they can fight to keep their positions after they both kind of like get fired or whatever. How were both of their attitudes in the minor choices there, mate?
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's the majority. Yeah, Gwen will keep fighting the committee's decision. Interesting because I am like doing my second playthrough of this game as we speak, and I have actually just finished episode 4, and I'm guessing that a part of this is potentially down to what you did with the main choice with like the fire stick. So if I'm wrong, obviously in the comments correct me, but the impression I'm getting is that with Gwen, she's not actually going to help me sort out the whole thing with screwing up Lucas. So I think if you choose to stand with Gwen and not save the footage, maybe that has an outcome on this particular minor choice as well. But in my original playthrough, I saved the footage and she was all happy to help me. So yeah, it seems like she's going to fight her own way, mate.
Yeah, likewise. And I don't know if anything, in the storm and the conversation we have with her in this episode has anything to do with that. But she said she'd keep fighting as well. And as for Yaz, I was in the majority. I didn't succeed on that one. It said they already forced her out. She wasn't going to keep fighting. So I don't know if that's because I called her out and I shattered the relationship. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, I wasn't able to get Yaz to fight for her job either.
Oh yeah, so I've got the board forces Yasmin out of the presidency, and that's the majority. So yeah, she's out of a job as well.
Yeah. Oh well. Sucks to be you, Yaz. Otherwise, talking to Moses about Safi, it says for me, Max said she wasn't giving up. I was in the majority with 56%.
I was in the minority. I've said that Max told Moses that she's done with Safi for good. So
Oh, okay. So that probably stems from the major choice then.
I mean, potentially. I don't know if, like, within the specific conversation with Moses, that there is something. I'm pretty sure there is, if I'm remembering rightly. But yeah, it just felt it would have feel like out of character for Max to go along with it, with what Safi was thinking and doing, especially after everything she's been through. The nightmare sequence, the travelling across timelines. Do you know what I mean? To try and save this woman, and she's obviously going off and sort of doing her own thing. So yeah, no, I was like, no, we're done. We're done, bitch.
Yeah, for sure, mate. I mean, we're just gonna one thing. That's the end of the minor choices. So one thing I'm gonna kind of just take our attention to now, mate, is basically Safi and her conclusion, as well as like the post-credit scene with what we get. So we're kind of both of the sentiment, aren't we, that we weren't a fan of Safi's writing. It seems like ever since that it was revealed, oh yeah, she's a shapeshifter and we go head to head with her in the other timeline, it kind of almost dismisses that she's dead in the other timeline and that we care. It's just that this Safi's alive, we're just hanging with her. But also, just goes on this strange like villain arc, doesn't she? Like, I guess she's just discovered her power, so it's like ecstasy for her. So like, while Max has already got trauma around it, she's like, yeah, powers aren't a gift, you know, like it's actually a curse as well, somewhat. Safi hasn't quite had that experience yet, but like, I don't know, just everything about it, like the way she goes like nuts at the end, you know, goes on this justice run, and then the way she kind of like burns a bridge with Max almost, and then I don't know, like the conclusion we got where Diamond's involved, where it just seems like she's leaving to form her own Avengers. I don't know, it did leave a sour taste in my mouth, and I just wanted your reaction to it as well.
Yeah, it did with me. It's almost like in the build up to that final choice, it's almost as if, you know, the writers at Deck 9 were writing it and they got to a point and they went, this is going to lead to a similar choice with Chloe, i.e., do we let Safi live or let Safi die? And then they were like, let's just quickly rewrite it so that Safi lives and we've then got to accept. And then what makes it weirder as well is that literally in the scene before, you're both sat on that bench, aren't you? In is it North Quad, or like, you know what I mean? That bench nearby, with all the snow and stuff, and you sort of seem to make peace with her, and you're like, okay, let's do this together. Only for the next scene, for then it all to, you know, shit to hit the fan again. And I was just like, oh, you're throwing the player like left, right, and centre, and it felt quite jumbled the way it had all been put together in the end. And even in the build up to that, I was sort of lost because of the constant harking back to season 1. Obviously it was a bit of fan service, but it felt like it was kind of predictable, and it just fell flat. It really did fall flat for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the fact that there was a storm there as well caused confusion, because for me the storm isn't caused by Max in the original game, but by the fact that Chloe's still in the universe. So like, when Max goes against killing Safi, I feel like the storm would pop off even bigger, but then it quiets down, and I'm so confused about the relevance of the storm. And then I completely agree with what you're saying. It does feel like they just wanted to steer away from Life is Strange 1, so they tried to conjure up some random ending at the end. And that, or they thought, oh, we want to go for like more people with more powers, we're going to build a Marvel type game, that's going to be Life is Strange 4. So we're going to, like, you know, basically have this ending where Diamond, this random NPC that like we've had about 3 chats with, she's going to have powers as well. Which is probably explained why she's the only one that we see outside in the quiet, you know, and, you know, like, nice little breadcrumb there. But regardless, I'm like, why Diamond? it wasn't really alluded at any point that Diamond's got powers, so it just felt like a last minute decision, like, oh yeah, that girl, you know, she's got powers as well, by the way. And the whole thing just felt really poor. And yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly, flat. And I think for an episode 5 where you really want it to kind of take off and, like, you know, kind of conclude well, this whole episode just screams to me last minute writing, nightmare sequence, let's say our goodbyes because we pretty much finished the plot of everything at the end of episode 3 or whatever. So yeah, I don't know, I was just super underwhelmed, mate.
That's another thing as well. Those dialogue scenes where you're talking to everyone at the end felt so dragged out. You know, it's a bad thing when you become hyper aware of just how bored you are, like when you can play a video game. And it was at this point I was really starting to tune out. I was thinking, I'm realising, you can probably hear it in my voice how negative this review is. But like, you know, that you had the Life is Strange, it was quite clear what they were trying to do, like bringing stuff back up, and it just didn't work. Even like for me, I mean, I know I've said this in another video, but what the heck, I'll say it again. For me, the whole Max returning thing, it shouldn't happen. I think that her story should be parked there now. And actually, I would have probably forgiven it had Max saved Safi. And then it was a case of like Safi saying, you know, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. Want to come with me or not? I don't know, mate. I've not really properly thought about what the major choice would be, but not in a villainous way. So that would then lead Safi to go on to be the lead character in the next one, and then Max could almost settle at Caledon University. Because when you have them chats at the end, she says to the characters, doesn't she? She says, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to explain everything. And I was like, that's the perfect place to just end her story. You then get the credits and it says she's going to be back. And I'm like, if she is back, I'm hoping it's more of a cameo thing than Max being a lead character and it's her versus Safi. Because for me, that's just not Life is Strange. Life is Strange is more interpersonal relationships, heavy social issues, but you've got a bit of supernatural in there. Whereas what they presumably where they're going just isn't what I thought this franchise was. So yeah, there's just a lot of bad decisions.
I agree, and yeah, honestly, it really did lose the essence of the original game, and I know it wants to steer away from it, but it almost did that too much. And the thing you mentioned about, I mean, I'm also going to bring Twin Mirror into this, and I know that is technically a Don't Nod game, and this is a Deck 9 title, but they are kind of somewhat under the same umbrella. But Twin Mirror does it at the end, where the final episode, they'll include like a final sort of scene, where for me, I got the graveyard ending because like one of the characters died. But like, you can just go around and chat to everyone and say your goodbyes in one scene, you know, so it's all condensed into that. Life is Strange 1 do it, but they do it in a manner where you're kind of going around and saving people from the storm, and you can save lives, but you're also kind of like trying to get to the end goal. This game kind of like, or this episode even, in Double Exposure, it almost felt like the plot ended in episode 3, then episode 4 was a giant prank and a bit of a justice run, and episode 5 is a nightmare sequence and a bunch of goodbyes, and it just felt so disjointed, and it just felt like we're just literally having these goodbye conversations, and it dragged for a good hour. And I just felt that stylistically it was all over the shop, and I just really wasn't a fan of it, mate. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't really think I was a fan of the nightmare sequence this time again. Twin Mirror did it, Life is Strange Season 1 did it, but it just felt a little bit tacky to me that we went back into a nightmare sequence, and it just didn't feel as fun as the first one. You know, in the first one we had like people walking around with the flashlights and we had to dodge them and avoid them, and at one point we're in a bathroom and there's a code in the mirror, and there was still like a bit of an escape room element. This wasn't. Like, it was quite fun to go back in the bathroom where like the trauma kicked off. That was quite like a dark note, but one that made sense. But I don't know, there's just things like we're going in motels, like kind of like PT style, where like the room's just looping and mirroring and everything slowly becomes cardboard and hollow. And yeah, like, and then like we meet the characters and we have to take photos of them to save them, and I don't know, it just felt very like, what the fuck is going on? what was your take on this nightmare sequence, mate?
There's that initial, when you first end up in the bathroom, you sort of like, oh, we're back here again. Then they do the thing with the chair, though, obviously from episode 5 of Life is Strange 1. They try to then bring that back, and it's one of them where, whereas, who knows, if you're like a big Life is Strange fan, I would really love you to counter my argument and say, no, I really like the harking back. It took me back to when I was playing it first game. For me, I think I just felt a little bit more detached from it, because it was almost, I'm getting what they're trying to do, but it's just not working. We've said this repeatedly. You get to the end of chapter 3. It was a great twist that Safi was a shapeshifter, but in a way it was just like chop, and you've then lost all these other plot threads. We even saw it with the Alderman thing. Now there's not a doppelganger Max. We don't really care about the Safi in the other world, like you said, because it's like, oh well, we found this one. So there's just so many things that have just been axed, and it just naturally fell apart. As far as the nightmare thing, though, I'm not gonna lie, I did sit there and think, because we played Frank Stone recently, and that had a nightmare sequence where it repeats corridors. A part of me did think, oh, bloody hell, not this again. I swear, if Lost Records does a similar thing, I'm like, is there a one memo that goes out to all these games, because we're just seeing a rehash of the same idea over and over again. I know that's not the game's fault. It's not its fault that Frank Stone came out before it, but I've got to admit, I did feel that in that particular moment.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's just the really overdone thing, and it's oh, that stylistically looks cool, we're all gonna steal it. And yeah, you're not wrong. I forgot Frank Stone did it, but yeah, you're right, everyone's doing it now. So yeah, if Lost Records does it, I'm really gonna cry my eyes out. One thing I want to speak about as well, mate, is this whole thing of we have two timelines, and at the end of the game they both merge. I don't know if I'm a fan of it or not, but I do quite like the whole choice consequence. For example, in my stream, we wanted the chaos, so we decided to kiss Amanda and Vin in another timeline. And then when they merged, they were kind of they knew what was going on, basically. Were you a big fan of the merged timelines, or do you think maybe it was kind of a cheap, tacky way just to put everyone on the same track?
I mean, potentially, yeah, you can just say it's a bit of a get out, isn't it? Because we know that from where Safi had impersonated a load of people, that was messing with their heads a lot, and this was a way to somewhat resolve it. In a practical sense, we're not going to get into a physics discussion here, but how it works just to merge two timelines. I think for me though, because there wasn't necessarily much social drama in the terms of the kissing, because I didn't kiss anyone. I think Yasmin lost her job. Gwen's gonna keep on fighting. It probably was the canon ending, my one. So I didn't really have anything, meaty or interesting to go on in that front. As an idea though, yeah, it's a get out, isn't it? It's okay, well, let's just combine both of them. How would it have worked had Safi, not been dead in the other timeline? Do you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. Head scrambled, mate.
The final thing I kind of have on my agenda that I wanted to raise to you. Now, I wanted to talk about Chloe a little bit. So in our game, it's evident that, at the end of Life is Strange 1, we decided to save Arcadia Bay. So Chloe kind of, is dead in our kind of timelines, right? So we kind of refer to her in past tense, etc. And then on our social media, we get people like Joyce and Victoria that are still alive and, kind of messaging and stuff. Yeah. I just wanted to chat to you. Do you kind of know what happens if you take the other timeline? Because I'm sure you've seen it, mate, but there are a load of angry reviews out there from Chloe fans that feel really aggrieved by the Chloe element in this game. And in case you're not aware, I was, maybe I could chime you in with it.
Well, I mean, from what I am aware, she doesn't feature in the game. In my current playthrough, like I say, I'm going through it, and I picked her to stay alive. All I've seen so far is that she posts on social media a couple of times, and she seems to be really pally with Victoria Chase, which I think is a little bit odd. Max mentions her a couple of times in referring to like the major choice. But other than that, no, it's really odd. It's like they just made the decision, no, she's not going to feature at all. And again, that's another like grievance that you can have with this game, is that it doesn't really honour your choice in Life is Strange 1, does it?
For sure. And the Victoria Chase thing is really weird. I'm glad you mentioned that, because in our game we would have had Victoria on social media say, oh, I was just thinking about this one like girl in my old school who's really punky. I'd love to take a photo of her right now. And then like I looked at the social media in the other kind of like sort of game, if you just say that Chloe's alive, and they're messaging one another. And I think the big thing that kicks people in the teeth, mate, is that if you say that Chloe's still alive, and that you were romantically involved, it defaults that a breakup happened. So It's written a breakup in there. Their whole thing being that they always travelled together, but then Chloe left because Max was living in the past, Chloe wanted to live in the future. And I guess it is a massive kick in the teeth for some people, because it does disrespect your choices. That it just does that cheap, tacky thing where it puts you on the same path. A little bit like Telltale Walking Dead did with Jane and Kenny, like just to get you to like the same game. And it is somewhat similar. And I didn't expect them to write 2 games, or like maybe have Chloe just absolutely feature in. But I do get it. If you're a massive Chloe Max shit person, and you kind of had this idea that they grew up happy together, and you wanted that ending, and then Double Exposure comes in and goes, actually, hang on, we're gonna fuck that up for you. I do get why people are pissed off, and on top of that, it's just the fact that Chloe's now meeting up with Victoria, and I don't know if there is anything romantic there or not, but potentially there is, and I can see why like Chloe and Max fans feel really pissed off. It absolutely pisses all over the choice and the idea you had from Life is Strange 1. So yeah, it's pretty disrespectful, I'm not gonna lie.
It is, and I mean, I've looked, because in this playthrough I sort of wanted to see what the Chloe interactions were like, and you are right, it's almost that they were going from motel to motel with one another, and I don't know, it's really weird where it cuts off, because they seem to be going back and forth. I recall at one point, I think, was it Max or Chloe said, oh, I didn't want to wake you, so I went out and done this and that. And you're just reading, you're scrolling down, and then it just cuts. And there was zero sort of inkling that potentially their relationship was on the rocks. But you think, like, even like Life is Strange 1, obviously different developer in Don't Nod, but you think of the choice with like Kate Marsh, is that if you manage to keep her alive, you then get those scenes in like the hospital, so that the choice matters. Could they have not done that? Could they have not had like scenes with Chloe at some point, like littered as flashbacks, or like they've done in Walking Dead, or just some sort of payoff towards it, rather than just explaining? It's that classic show versus tell. We've been told, oh yeah, they've broken up. Whereas if you could have flashbacks where you could play scenes as Max, and maybe it showed you breaking up, maybe the fans would be a little bit more warm to that, because people do break up, it is a thing, but the fact that you've just explained it away, it's sort of, it's a bit shitty.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it kind of just another reason why this game is kind of like left like a bit of a lead bling, mate. Is there any sort of other points in the episode you want to mention, or did you want to kind of like go to summarising your feelings and conclusions about the game in general, lad?
I mean, if I haven't already, I feel like I think I'm ready to just almost conclude my thoughts and feelings on it, mate, but I'll let you lead.
Yeah, so I guess for me, I am a little aggrieved by the price, even by the fact I've paid standard edition. RIP, and I'm so sorry to anyone out there who bought, the Ultimate Edition, because I've looked at the footage of like what you get with the cats, and oh my god, it is actually an insult, mate. You don't even get it like a cat in every episode. You get it appears 4 times in total, and I feel so sorry for anyone who feels scammed by that, because it's 30 quid more. And we're talking about how they could have added extra Chloe scenes in. like they definitely had the time and the resources, because they spent like making like putting these cats into these scenes. So yeah, like but yeah, I paid standard edition, which I'm glad, because yeah, I only got 3 outfits, but I didn't need outfits, I didn't need the cats. So yeah, like there's that. But yeah, I don't know, the game just felt very flat in a lot of areas, very disjointed. I think my biggest grievance is like the plot direction. It felt like there was this whole murder mystery thing, and I was really on board with it. Then it was revealed what the hell happened at the end of episode 2. Then episode 3 is kind of covering that, kind of getting more answers, and that was okay as well. And then episode 4 is a giant prank, and episode 5 is a nightmare sequence and saying goodbyes. The plot changed direction one too many times. Yeah, the whole Chloe choice, and choices in general are just super weak. There's just not much consequence for your actions in the game. And it did feel quite linear in areas. The whole sort of like, it strays and abandons and like really puts its middle finger up to the original game, especially the Chloe choice. And then there's just a load of things in there that leave a really sour taste in my mouth, like how Alderman was handled. There's just a lot in this game that I wasn't a fan of. And not to say I totally hate it, I want to make that clear. There was a lot of stuff about the game that I did really like the mystery, I was really on board. I really liked Max's character development. But just in the end, I think there's probably more harm than good, and I still kind of retain that I think like this game didn't need to be made, and I'm not super excited about the next title they release. So yeah, like if I had to give it a score out of 10, it's probably getting a solid 5 out of 10 for me, mate. It might sound harsh, I don't know, but I'm just kind of thinking like it was a playable game. I did enjoy parts, but I'm gonna like if you say Life is Strange to me, I'm thinking the original game and Before the Storm. I am not thinking Double Exposure. Left a sour taste in my mouth in certain areas. So yeah, like unfortunately the ending, especially the final 2 chapters, do kind of like deteriorate what seemed to be like, a neat little project, but almost swayed my mind. But yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, I've got to say, I'm pretty much in agreement. I think it's like a 5 out of 10. I think for me, visuals, superb, in terms of the visuals and, what previous games have been like. The characters, pretty solid. Having said that, I do think that while they weren't bad, it was almost a struggle for me to connect with some of them, which again comes into the plot. When you think about Amanda, they really try to force it down your throat that she's a romantic interest far too early, and it then ruined the choice. Move on to the choices, not that strong. I'm at start of episode 5 in my second playthrough, and I feel like it's not that different of a game as to when I first played it, apart from the odd line regarding Chloe or something like that, but it's not that different at all. Music, I'm a Bond fan, but I don't think it was well placed for the main theme. As far as the other music goes, yeah, it was serviceable. Do I think it's as memorable as Life is Strange 1? No. So I think you're just right. I think it was the plot direction that made this fall apart. It was started off really promising, so to be honest guys, when we do an episode ranking, you can probably already predict it based off like these analysis episodes. But yeah, and then it just, I don't know, it's almost as if they went, wow, we've tried to do too much, we need to course correct and just simplify it, and therefore it then just felt a little bit flat towards the end. Coming back to the last point though I've got is coming back to the Ultimate Edition. One thing that I find frustrating with it as well is that you've basically got 2 achievements that are locked behind it. So those that haven't got Ultimate Edition can't get the 100% because they've not got the cat content, which, as you've mentioned already, is bang underwhelming anyway. So yeah, really, based off all of that, I should be giving it less than a 5 out of 10. But I don't know, maybe I'm feeling a little bit nicer than what I appear at the minute, so I'll stick with the 5 out of 10.
Yeah, and one thing I want to kind of add on something you've kind of brought up as well is like the underdeveloped characters. They definitely felt half-baked. and I look at Life is Strange 1, and for some reason you go around campus and there's characters like Kate Marsh, Victoria, like Dana, and I'm like really invested in them, and I really want them to do well, be nice with them, like find out their stories. This one, I just went around and I couldn't really care less about the people. Like, it's trying to throw me all these characters like Loretta and Reggie and Diamond, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you guys, but I just wasn't that invested, and whether that's the fault of the game and the character writing. You mentioned Amanda, it tries to shove her down your throat right away, and I just wasn't for that. And the other thing as well, mate, is that I just felt the original game had the spread of like the choices and kind of the characters, and the locations much better. Like, for example, like in each episode you could save Alyssa from like doom at a certain point, you could like water a plant, there would be like a few minor choices scattered here and there. This game, like, it does so many weird little things. Like, it'll introduce this like Abraxas puzzle box in episodes 1 and 2, and then it's just not a thing anymore. And then then it randomly, like, you'll water a plant in one episode, and then like you'll like learn about platypus stuff and like a thing, and then like some episodes you'll get one major choice, while in others you'll get like 5 or 6, and it just felt like certain episodes were like written by different people maybe. And I don't know, there was just a lack of consistency throughout the game as well for my taste. So yeah, like, and that's even telling by the runtime as well, that the first 3 episodes have a 3-hour runtime, while the last 2 have a 2-hour runtime. So yeah, just something went amiss in this game, and yeah, it's just super hard to kind of like figure out what the hell happened there. But yeah, like, wasn't like, the game didn't pass with flying colours as we almost hoped it could have like shocked us, and has done. But well, like, they all can't be great, mate. Strong prediction, mate, but I just have a feeling Lost Records is going to be a real good one. So there's that we have to pray for.
Yeah, I hope so. And you know what? I'm gonna like finish on like asking you a question then. Okay. So it's those that have seen the channel, that have seen our Life is Strange videos, know that me and Liam aren't like the biggest fans of Life is Strange 2. But where does double exposure sit with Life is Strange 2?
Oh, you know what, mate? It's a really good question, because you know what though, mate? It's a tough one, because with Life is Strange double exposure, you have like recurring characters because you're not on a massive road trip, and you do have Max, who I really enjoy as a character. But I have to say, mate, these games are about story, and they are about the choices, and I think Life is Strange 2 has that, because at least with Life is Strange 2 you kind of have like 4 endings, kind of like 2, like a 50-50 at the end with which one you want to choose, but based off of Daniel's teaching, that like forks another 2, and then you get 4 endings. This game doesn't really have that, and I feel like, although I didn't connect with the main 2 characters in Life is Strange 2, and the road trip element didn't really connect with me, I have to say the choices were on the table, mate, and I'm gonna have to kind of revisit Life is Strange 2 and play it again. But yeah, in that aspect, Life is Strange 2 might be the better game, mate.
I think I've got the exact same answer. I think I'm almost going to have to revisit Life is Strange 2. As you well know, I didn't have a good time with it. I thought it was so boring. But I think I'm almost going to have to revisit it to compare against double exposure now, because yeah, that'll be interesting. Because for me personally, playing these Life is Strange games, with the potential contention between Life is Strange 2 and double exposure, it has gradually got worse for me. I've yet to play True Colours, so I'm almost hoping that when I get round to playing True Colours, that the curve goes upwards again, because so far it's just been a downward decline.
Yeah, I agree, because Before the Storm was like better than Life is Strange 2 for me, so the games have got worse and worse. I'm gonna have to play True Colours, and hopefully that can change my opinion a little bit. But I look at how this, like, the conclusion happened, and it looks like we are getting a Marvel Avengers type game, and I don't want to buy that. Like, that's just not Life is Strange to me. So it's like, yeah, like, it's left a sour taste in my mouth, and yeah, like, I've got no urgency to play, triple exposure, whatever the fuck we're gonna call it, with like the Ultimate Edition, like with cat content that I really don't give a fuck about, mate. Well, guys, thank you for listening to us rant negatively for 40 minutes. It's been quite a negative one, but this channel is super honest. We have to talk about what we really thought. I'm really intrigued to know what you guys thought of the episode, so please drop us your comments. Let us know wholeheartedly what your choices were, what you thought of this episode as well as the game. And also, please stick around because, we've got lots of different video ideas to do with Life is Strange Double Exposure around the corner. But until then, we will see you in the next one, guys. Thank you very much for joining for this analysis series.
Just later.